When Henry Sangmaster spotted an unusual object in the sky in the fall of 2017, little did he realise it was going to put on a show just for him. And he's joining us today to talk all about it. Hi, Henry, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Dean. How are you?
I'm well. Well, about 4 years ago, you had a really unusual experience with a UFO. A lot of people wish that the day would come where they will actually see one, but you got more than you bargained for. Do you want to talk about what you saw?
Absolutely. Excuse me. My fiance and I was playing a miniature golf. It was her birthday on May 4th, and we played a little miniature golf, and we had a wonderful time. And we came out of the building, and here at on Folsom Boulevard, we call Folsom Boulevard over here. The weather was overcast, and it was kind of windy out. It was kind of blustery. And we came out of the building, and I looked up, and I saw this kind of a perfect circle, a darkened shadow against the sky, and it had a green strobe on it that looked very much like a helicopter strobe. It had the same kind of intensity, it had the same pulse to it. And I've since learned that when people see something very strange, they try to rationalize it or they try to relate it to an everyday object. So I happened to say to her, "Hey, look at that helicopter." And after I said that, it dropped down, immediately dropped down. It came out of our eye line and it went behind a parking lot tree. This parking lot tree was only about 20 feet tall.
Mhm.
And she's looking around all over the place. She says, "Where? I don't see it. I don't see it." I said, "Here, right here behind this tree." We walked over to the edge of the parking lot, which was about 40, 50 feet from where we originally came out of the building. And we stood on the sidewalk of the main thoroughfare there. It was a fair sized road. It was a 2 lanes each ways of traffic. And I looked at this thing drop out of the sky, and it was just the most amazing sight you ever wanted to see. It was dark gray. It had three lights on the front or windows, and it had louvers in between them, a lot like the louvers on my
Yep.
window here. and it starts to lower out of the sky, and I was just so amazed. It was about 50 feet across, and I knew it was 50 feet across because I immediately went home that day and looked on Google Earth and measured the trees, the width of the trees that it came in between. And it was about 50, 60 feet in between those trees. It could fit. And she looked, and we stood on the sidewalk together, and she looks at me and she says, "That's not a helicopter." Yeah, no, it's not a helicopter. And it just sat there. I thought the thing was going to land. I
Right.
really did. I was so amazed. It came down. I thought maybe about 20 feet from the ground, very low, and it just sat there and hovered. Now, mind you, the wind is blowing, the trees are moving, the bushes are moving, everything is moving. This thing is perfectly silent. It's perfectly sitting still. Um, all it's got are these three kind of like recessed lighting, like you would see in a kitchen. They were frosted white in the front, maybe about 18 inches across. Now, I work for Sacramento County. I drive heavy equipment. I drive front loaders, and I drive big trucks. I work with all kinds of machinery. And I think what struck me as the most amazing was the size of this machine and no noise, absolutely silent. I have a good idea what it takes to move a large piece of equipment. And there was absolutely
Mhm.
no machinery whatsoever involved, no ordinary machinery. The three lights sat there in the front. They pointed towards my right, which would be the west. Didn't really emit much light. For having those lights on the front, it was about 6:40 at night in May. So it was still fairly bright out. It came down, it sat there, and my fiance says to me, my wife Kyra now, "Take a picture," because I was just staring at it. It was just, I tell people it was just so beautiful. It was sleek, it was smooth, it was completely silent. I mean, as a person who loves machinery and cars, this is just the ultimate machine you could ever want to
Right.
see. And I wouldn't move. I, People think I was fixated or did something to me. I don't know. I just wouldn't move. She tells me to take a picture. The camera is in the car. The phone is in the car because I didn't want us to be disturbed on her birthday and have a phone call. I told her it's in the trunk of the car. And she says, "Well, go get it." So I took out my key fob. It was so rude. I took out my key fob and I go, click. You go get it. I can't take my eyes off this thing. So she walks off to go get it. And none of us are afraid. Neither one of us are afraid or worried or anything. We're just amazed. And I'm staring at this thing. As soon as she leaves, she thought it was very opportunistic that at that point she went to go get the phone to take a picture. This thing starts moving off. Now, there's a homeless person on the side of the building over there. He didn't react to it. There's cars going across the street. We're not in a rural location. We're in a very busy part of town. We're not in the middle of town, but we're on the edge of town. There's cars all over. I was going to walk across the street and get closer, but I was afraid of getting hit. That's how many cars there were. And nobody's stopping. Nobody's looking. Nobody's pointing. Nobody's even paying attention. Right as she goes away, it starts moving. Now it's moving so slow that I can walk alongside of it and keep pace with it. I'm on my side of the road. It's 4 lanes across. I'm on my side of the road. It's moving. I'm walking like this. It's moving like this. It's kind of again, it was just silent. It's moving past the front of the trees. There were plenty of trees there, and over the railroad tracks, kind of parallel the railroad tracks. Now, remind you, this is just outside of Aerojet property. Aerojet, who makes all the engines for the different
Right. Right.
We thought that was interesting. It's moving along. She still isn't back with the phone. I thought that was strange to me. The phone was only about maybe 60 feet away in the parking lot. She still isn't back. But of course, I'm worried about this UFO thing. I'm watching it move across like this. I get to the intersection of our streets, Folsom Boulevard and Hazel. Huge intersection. And it sits there for a moment and it dips down a little bit to go underneath the wires that are there. There's some power lines there. It dips down a little bit like this. And I thought it was going to land. I thought that thing was going to sit on the ground and somebody was going to get out. It was just so, the feeling was so intense. I get to the corner of the intersection. I'm standing on the corner. Cars are still whizzing past. Nobody's paying attention. And it goes off at a 45-degree angle from the road. It just disappears into the Aerojet property.
Okay.
By that time, she comes back and in a little bit of a state because she didn't see me standing there when she got back to our original spot, original position. And she says, I thought they took you and you have the keys. I said, well, you thought they took me, but you're worried about, lose the keys to the car.
Yeah. So you said it was smooth and it was just outside Aerojet. I was just going to ask you because I've often heard Stephen Greer remark about man-made UFOs compared to extraterrestrials, and you can tell the man-made ones that have got the like the riveted connections on them, but the extraterrestrial ones are smooth from top to bottom. Was there any sign of any of the rivets?
Not at all. Not at all. It was completely smooth, a dark matte gray or black color. It had the louvers in the front, in between, just like there was in the book. It's depicted in the book. That's about it. I got the feeling, and I don't know why, I got the feeling this was man-made. I can't prove it. I can't say distinctly that it was, but it wasn't like you hear about other sightings where it's a light in the sky or it's a fuzzy thing or you couldn't really see the shape of it. It was just like looking at a school bus. It was just as real, just as solid, just as metal. I mean, you see that it was metal or something very close. I got the feeling it was man-made. She didn't think that way, but who can say?
Did the object have any visible signs of propulsion on it?
Zero. The only thing it had that she noticed that I didn't notice, maybe because I was more fascinated by the lights in the front of the saucer, she thought it emitted a red light or glow on the bottom. I can't say I noticed that. But you know how it goes when you have two different witnesses. One person will focus on one thing and one person will focus on another. But absolutely, there is no current of air coming out of the bottom. There is no flames, no noise, no anything. It just sat there.
Right. Did it interfere or disturb any of the landscape around it?
No, absolutely not. Matter of fact, the wind disturbed more the landscape than anything else. I checked that day. The wind was about 10 to 15 miles an hour. And it was fairly blustery out. I mean, trees were moving around and this thing was not disturbed at all.
Mm. So when it disappeared, did it go off slowly, or did it just suddenly take off?
It went off slowly. And that was a little strange because it wasn't a foggy evening. There was no fog or anything like that, but it did seem to disappear slowly as if it went into a fog bank, but there was no fog. It just went off like this and just vaporize. Uh, that's pretty tough to explain.
Yeah.
It's hard to even describe.
So, why weren't other people seeing it? And did you ask any of the other people around at the time whether they actually saw something?
I think Kyra turned around at one point and told the homeless person there, "Hey, look at this, but he was passed out. There was no talking to him. As far as cars moving down the road, no, at that point, I just wasn't concerned with flagging anybody down. The event lasted for quite a while as these things go. I'd say it lasted for about 5 minutes.
Hmm.
I probably could have. I probably could have flagged somebody down. To this day, I really regret not getting closer. I really wanted to get closer and see better. She regrets not getting the camera faster, but
Yeah, yeah.
who can say? I don't know. So many of these things, and of course, I'm in a paranormal group called FSP now, and we'll talk to people, and we'll look at photographs, or I'll observe evidence. And when you talk to them, they'll say, "Look, this photograph is nothing what it looks like." I've had people tell me that they've taken pictures of objects, of orbs, and they just don't come out. So who can say whether it would have been a viable photograph or not?
Yeah. Well, now you're involved with with like an extraterrestrial group. I mean, I keep getting told by experiences that the object appeared. It just seemed like it appeared just for my viewing, and no one else can see it. But so do you believe it appeared just for you, and why? I mean, is there a past where you've had experiences?
I have had experience. I've had several. I've had experience since I was a little boy camping. I saw a cigar-shaped object whoosh through the trees. I was out sleeping. It was kind of my habit to sleep outside when everybody else was in the tent. I was about 8 or 10 years old. I saw a silvery cigar-shaped object go through the clouds and emitted kind of a vapor trail. I've seen out here when I was working for the county about 15, 20 years ago, I've seen a V-shaped object rotating like this. My friend saw it too that day. I said, "What is that? What is that?" And we saw that. It faded away, got farther away. And then at one point, I had witness another one with my friend. We were out test driving his truck one night. He'd worked on his truck. It was about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. We were on the freeway. And as we were heading out the highway, it was raining for food, just pouring down, cats and dogs. And at the spotlight, not the spotlight, but the street light hanging over the freeway, we thought it was an airplane that was going to make an emergency landing. It was coming down so hard, we thought the plane was in trouble. And as we got closer, we could see it wasn't moving. And that UFO did remind me of this one.
Hmm.
I only remember two lights on that one, but it was the same shape. It had the exact same type of lights. Except you could see the light beams coming out of it. And as we got closer and passed this thing up, you could see that it was not moving. We looked at it and looked again. I said, that was a flying saucer. That was a UFO. We went out the freeway, turned around, came back. By that time, it was gone. Now, to say that it showed itself just for us, honestly, I've never thought about that before until I contacted you. I never once thought that. I thought I just attributed it to human nature. People are so focused on their daily jobs, what they have to do. They got to go with the kids. They got to do this, that. I thought that maybe it was just a case of people not paying attention. However, since I've thought about it, it seems like there are more and more cases where people can say that they saw something, other witnesses should have seen it, but nobody did.
Hmm.
So is there something going on like that? Quite possibly. Quite possibly. I
Yeah.
know that it was just as solid and as real as could, like I said, it's just like looking at a building or a vehicle or something. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine, I can't get past other people not noticing that thing. It was
Mhm.
extraordinary.
Now, this next question, I always ask people that see a UFO close up, did you experience missing time? And have you experienced missing time in the past?
I don't remember any missing time. There was the only part of this that was very odd to me. It seemed to take her a long time to get back to me. It I keep saying it shouldn't have taken that much time, but something extraordinary happens. Your sense of time passes differently. I can't say why I've had missing time. It may be true. I would like to see a hypnotist and relive the account just so I could get some refreshing the details in my mind. I always thought I would like to do that and have some type of session
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
could see it again, perhaps get more details out of it. I would be open to that.
Okay, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Just talk briefly about the feeling of being fixated on it, because I can relate to that. The first time I saw one and it was close up, I had that very same feeling of just being fixated on it, but I couldn't quite remember whether there was any communication taking place. I mean, were you having any communication with the object?
No, no, I wish I had. I like I said, this really renewed my interest again. I was off on my own thing in my happy little life when this happened. And after this, I'm full bore again. I'm so happy. I can't wait to see the news. I love everything that's happening now. I'm in a CE5 group on Facebook. I had my
Mm-hmm.
first incident the other night where I was able to see a little bit of action in the skies. I'm so excited now. I did not have any communication that I can recall, but I did have that just intense sense of wonder.
Okay. So the object had no windows on it, so you weren't able to see if there were figures inside. What about what about reporting it? Did you report it? And
I did.
did you speak with an investigator?
I did. I called up MUFON right away. I think I contacted them that day, and I was contacted by a investigator. She came out. We went to the site. She took measurements. Matter of fact, as soon as I called it, they assigned me a case number. You can even look up my. I communicated that to you. You could look up my case on the database at MUFON. My story was featured in the sightings of a 2017 book that MUFON put out. And then the investigator chose my story to publish in her book,
Mhm.
her book that she just wrote, UFO Investigator.
Okay. Okay. And that's Dev Rugni.
Rooney, yes, Dev Rooney.
Rooney.
Mhm.
Okay, because I'm interviewing Dev in the next few days as well, and she's got plenty of stories to share with us. So um, you've had experiences in the past, but your interest in UFOs at the time was waning, and it's suddenly picked up again. Other than the CE5 experiences, have you had anything similar since 2017?
Nothing like that. Matter of fact, those other experiences pale in comparison to what I saw in 2017. Um, I, I I do have this. As it is, as I understand it, when somebody has something like this happen, they tend to go back to the site. That was me. I kept going back to the site. I went back the day after. A few days later, I went back again. I went back again. And my wife, Kyra, she would go with me and we'd look around, look up at the sky and things and wonder. And at the corner of Folsom and Hazel, where I walked to the corner, there is a 7-Eleven little convenience store. So she gets the idea. She goes, "Hey, why don't we go talk to this guy? Maybe he saw something." I said, "I wish I would have thought of that before." I said, "Okay, let's go in there." So we talked to the gentleman. I said, "Hi, how you doing?" And we're trying to make a little small talk, and he seems a little a little off-putting. He's not interested in the story. I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Hey, I saw something weird. Have you ever seen anything weird?" Blah blah blah. No, no, no. I don't want to be involved.
Right.
And then after a little bit more discussion and buying a couple more items, he opened up a little bit. He says, "Well, something strange did happen." I said, "Oh, really? What was it?" He goes, "Well, there's a man who used to come here and help me stock shelves." I said, "Oh, okay." And he'd come in and stock shelves and just chat with me and kind of hang out. He wasn't an employee, he just kind of like stocking the shelves and hanging out there. I thought that was a little strange. So he says, one day when the man isn't there, some other men come dressed in black. And they came in there and started asking questions about this gentleman. I don't remember. He didn't even say his name.
Right.
So his
Right.
name is Jerry, whatever. He says, "Hey, we want to know about this guy that works here." He goes, "Well, he doesn't work here. He just comes in here and hangs out. He helps me stock shelves and we chit chat." He goes, "Well, if you see this guy, you're to give us a call right away. And they left. So he says about a couple weeks later, I think he was, the man came, parked his car at the corner of the parking lot in an odd place. There were no parking spots there. He parked at an odd angle so he could view Aerojet across the street, kind of kitty corner across the street.
Right.
And he says the man got out of his car and two black SUVs pulled up, put the gentleman in the SUV, drove off, and somebody drove his car away, and he never saw him again.
Wow. Wow.
I thought that was very telling.
Yeah.
I guess the man, I would guess that the gentleman wanted to be there. He wanted to hang out in that area. So he said, well, I think I'll chit chat with the guy at the convenience store and help him stock shelves, and I could spend more time here, because I think that's what it was. I think he wanted to stay in the area. He wanted to see something.
Well, that could be I mean, if it happened a while ago, but that could be a story in itself. So we're talking Men in Black. I'm not sure if it's the Men in Black that scare people to death. But have you had any visits like that?
No, I haven't. And I'll tell you though, one fear of mine was that if I got a hold of this picture, I would have to put it on every social media out there, and I might get a visit from a Man in Black.
Right.
So I did think about that.
Yeah, but you've been able to sketch pictures of the UFO, which will show our viewers as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a few pictures of that. Matter of fact, I was so fascinated by the shape that when you see that shape, that classic shape, that shape starts popping up everywhere that you look. It's like when you buy a car, all of a sudden you see everybody else's car that is like yours.
Yeah.
But one particular instant was when I was at the gym. I was at a 24-hour gym and fitness, and I was in there working out, and the vents that are made into the ceiling with this perfectly round shape to it. It had kind of a curve to it. And I was just fascinated. I would stare at that silly thing all the time I was on the treadmill. So when you have an experience like that, it really does lock you in.
Great. Well, Henry, I really thank you for sharing your story with us. It is fascinating, even though it happened 4 years ago. But we've had a couple of previous guests that have had similar stories, and as I said, the fascination with them and what actually took place just really sticks in your mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Henry, thank you, and stay in touch. Let us know if you see it again, and secondly, and I hope this doesn't happen, but you get a visit.
Oh, I'll let you know. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I'm all in. So I'll tell you what, this was such a fun experience. Thank you, Dean.
All right. Thank you, Henry. Henry Sangmaster joining us today.